The woman in gray shoes. Sun was soft that morning, not too hot, not too cold. Alexandra Grant stood in front of the large glass window of the real estate office. Her fingers were wrapped tightly around the handle of her canvas bag. Her shoes were simple worn gray flats, with tiny specks of white paint still stuck to the soles. She didn't mind. She never dressed to impress. She was there for one reason: to find a new home. Not for herself, but for her art. For months, Alexandra had been searching for the right space. A place full of natural light, big open walls, and enough peace for creativity to breathe. It didn't need to be fancy, it didn't need to be perfect. It just needed to feel like it could hold stories. She had done her research. This office was known for helping clients find unique properties, tucked-away studios, and quiet little gems that no one else noticed. She walked in with hope in her heart and trust in her steps. The office was polished, modern, to clean, almost. Behind the front desk sat a woman with long red nails tapping quickly on her phone. She didn't look up, not right away. Alexandra waited patiently, then cleared her throat. "Hi. I have an appointment with Ford. I'm looking to view the old loft on Channing Street." The woman finally looked up, giving Alexandra a once-over. Her eyes moved from Alexandra's plain dress to the bag slung over her shoulder, then down to the scuffed gray shoes. "Name?" she asked with a sharp tone. "Alexandra Grant." The woman's brows lifted slightly, then tightened. She stood and walked toward the back, heels clicking like tiny hammers. A few moments later, a man appeared, mid-40s, well-dressed, suit tailored, shoes polished, hair slicked back to perfectly. He looked like someone who had never been late to anything in his life. His name was Andrew Ford. He smiled quickly, tightly, but there was no warmth in it. "You're Alexandra?" She nodded and smiled politely. He glanced down at her shoes. "Ah," he said, as if something made sense now. "I think there's been a mistake." Alexandra tilted her head. "Mistake?" He stepped to the side and gestured toward a sleek leather chair. "Why don't we sit down for a moment?" They did. Andrew pulled up a tablet and scrolled quickly. "The loft on Channing Street," he began, "is a premium listing. It's currently going for well over $2 million. We've had offers from collectors, investors, people in the industry." Alexandra nodded slowly. "I understand, but I've been looking at that space for months. I don't need the whole building, just the upper studio and rooftop area." He didn't even try to hide the smirk. "Right," he said. "Well, we usually don't split listings like that. And honestly, it's not the kind of property we recommend to independent artists." The words hung heavy in the air. Alexandra's smile faded. "I didn't say I was independent. I said I was an artist." He ignored her correction. "We've had buyers come in from Europe," he said, tapping the screen. "People with real offers, not just dreams." She straightened a little in her seat. "I didn't come with dreams. I came with plans and backing." He raised an eyebrow. "Backing? As in financing?" She nodded. Double quotes. "Look," he said, leaning forward, voice low and patronizing. "I'm sure you're passionate, but let's be real. The people looking at this property aren't here to paint sunsets. They're here to build something. You understand?" Alexandra looked him in the eyes, calm, unshaken, but something inside her tightened. "What I'm building," she said softly, "can't be seen on spreadsheets." He laughed lightly, shook his head, and stood. "I'm sorry," he said, "but I don't think this is the right place for you. Perhaps there's something more modest you'd like me to show you." She stood to, calmly, her voice never rising. Double quotes. "No, thank you." She walked out. ***. She didn't cry in the parking lot, but she did sit in her car for a long moment, hands on the wheel, eyes focused on nothing. It wasn't the rejection that hurt. It was the way it had been delivered. The way he looked at her clothes, her shoes, her bag, and decided who she was. He didn't know anything about her. He didn't know she had once sold her paintings for scraps just to afford canvas. He didn't know she had built her career quietly, slowly, with grace. And he definitely didn't know who she was loved by. She looked at her phone. There were 3 missed calls from Keanu. She smiled faintly, then dialed back. His voice came on almost instantly. "Hey, everything okay?" And that's when the tears came, **** 20 minutes later, Keanu Reeves stood in front of the same glass window of the real estate office. His face was calm, his black t-shirt slightly wrinkled, his eyes steady. He walked in. The woman with the red nails looked up. This time, she stood quickly. *Mr. Reeves, oh wow, this is unexpected.* He said nothing. He walked straight toward the office in the back. Andrew Ford was sitting at his desk, typing. He looked up, confused at first. Then confused turned to pale surprise. *Keanu Reeves, what a surprise.* Keanu sat down in the chair across from him. His voice was calm. *You met Alexandra this morning?* Andrew blinked. Oh, that was her. She didn't mention. She didn't need to. Keanu interrupted. Andrew opened his mouth to speak again, but Keanu kept going. *You looked at her shoes, her clothes, her bag, and decided she wasn't worth your time.* Andrew shifted uncomfortably. *Mr. Reeves, please understand. This is a competitive market. I have to filter serious buyers from…" Keanu leaned forward. "She's more serious than you'll ever be." His voice was low, powerful, controlled, and she wasn't asking for a handout. She was offering to build something beautiful. Andrew's voice cracked slightly. I didn't mean offense. I didn't know. You didn't want to know." Keanu said. Andrew sat back, speechless. Keanu stood. "I'll be buying that loft," he said, "and I expect you to send all the documents to her, in her name." "Of course," Andrew stammered. "I'll take care of it right away." Keanu nodded once. Then left. ***. Later that night, Alexandra sat on the rooftop of the building. She once feared she'd never step inside. She was barefoot. The stars were just starting to appear. Beside her was a copy of the contract finalized. Hers. Keanu sat next to her, sipping tea. "You didn't have to do that," she said. He looked at her. "I know." She rested her head on his shoulder. "But I'm glad you did." Below them, the lights of the city blinked and shimmered. And up there, on that quiet roof, two artists sat in silence, not because they had nothing to say, but because they finally didn't have to explain themselves to anyone. ***. Name on the door. Next morning, light poured through the tall windows of the loft. It hit the blank white walls like sunlight on fresh snow. Alexandra walked slowly across the wooden floor, her bare feet making soft creaks. Everything felt quiet, open, like the room itself had been holding its breath until she came back. A tiny smile played on her lips. She stood in the center of the space and spun once, arms out. Like a child. It was hers now, not because someone handed it to her, but because someone believed in her enough to stand beside her when others didn't. She looked toward the empty wall by the stairs and whispered, "You're going to hold something beautiful." ***. Across town, Andrew Ford sat at his desk, his jaw still tight. He kept glancing at the door like he expected Keanu to walk back in any minute. His pride was bruised, badly. He had tried to apologize through email. He even asked if he could personally offer assistance in customizing the property, but no response came. What made it worse wasn't that Keanu called him out, it was how calmly he had done it, how truthfully, how clear his words had been. Andrew prided himself on reading people, but he'd failed to read Alexandra completely, and now he was the name being whispered around the office. "That's the guy who insulted Keanu Reeves, his partner." ***. Later that week, Alexandra returned to the loft. This time, she brought paint, buckets of it, soft blues, deep reds, earth browns, and sky grays, colors that spoke without speaking. She had a plan. The rooftop would become her sky studio. The upstairs walls would host free community workshops, and the main floor an open gallery, not for elite buyers, but for real people, students, street artists, anyone who had ever been told they weren't the right kind. Keanu arrived just as she was opening the first can of paint. He stepped in, holding to paper bags. "Breakfast," he said simply. She grinned. "You always know when I haven't eaten. You always forget to eat when you're planning." They sat on the floor, surrounded by color. Alexandra talked about her vision. Keanu listened. He didn't interrupt, didn't suggest, just nodded and smiled the way someone does when they're watching a dream unfold in real time. "It won't be easy," she said quietly. "Not everyone likes art that challenges." "Good," he said. It means they'll remember it. Asterisk asterisk while Alexandra painted, word started to spread. The gallery was opening soon. Not just any gallery, Alexandra Grant's gallery. People who once ignored her name now leaned forward when they heard it. Social media buzzed. Interviews were requested. Press started calling it the silent rebellion in downtown. Andrew Ford saw all of it. At first, he tried to shrug it off, but then the owner of another property he was trying to sell called and said, "I don't want someone like you handling my listing, not after what I heard." His phone didn't ring as much after that. His colleagues kept their distance, and slowly, he realized this wasn't just about one woman in gray shoes. This was about how quickly the world changes when truth walks in the room. A week before the gallery opened, Alexandra visited a local art school. She walked into a classroom filled with students and said, "Who here has ever been told their work isn't good enough?" Almost every hand went up. She smiled gently. "I want your pieces in my opening show." The room erupted in disbelief. Some students cried. Others didn't believe her. But she meant every word. Asterisk asterisk on the day of the opening. The loft looked transformed. Lights hung from the ceiling like fireflies. Music played softly. Laughter and quiet awe filled the space. Alexandra wore a simple black dress and her same old gray shoes. They were clean now, but still hers. Keanu stood beside her. Not in front. Not behind. Beside. "You nervous?" he asked. "A little." "Good," he said. "It means it matters." People began to arrive. Not celebrities, not collectors, just people. Young, old, curious. Then something strange happened. Andrew Ford walked through the door. He wore a dark jacket. No assistant, no fake smile. He looked out of place. Alexandra noticed him immediately, but instead of turning away, she walked toward him. "You came," she said simply. "I had to," he said. "I needed to see what I almost blocked." He looked around the room at the students beaming beside their work, at the murals, the stories written on canvas. "You were right," he said. "What you build can't be measured by spreadsheets." She nodded. Double quotes. "Thank you," he added, voice quiet, "for making something that doesn't belong to people like me." Alexandra didn't respond right away. Then she said, "Everyone belongs to something when they're ready to listen." And with that, she turned back toward her guests. Asterisk asterisk later that night, as the event wound down, Alexandra stood at the rooftop, the stars above her once again. Keanu joined her, handing her a cup of warm tea. "You changed something," he said. She looked at him. "We changed something." He smiled. "You know," she added, "I'm glad he showed up tonight." "Why?" he asked. "Because regret is the beginning of growth." Keanu nodded. "And grace is what follows." They looked out over the city, the lights glowing like embers below. The air was cool, the wind gentle. And up there, on that roof, they didn't need applause. They didn't need praise. They had something much better. They had each other, and a place that finally felt like theirs. Asterisk paint on the walls. Power in the hearth. Sun rose slowly the next morning. Soft gold light spilled across the wide floorboards of the loft, sliding gently over the paintings that had been left to dry. The air still held the warmth of last night's voices, the music, and something deeper, hope. Alexandra stood in front of one of the larger pieces, her hands resting lightly on her hips. It wasn't perfect. The lines weren't even. The shades didn't match, but that was the point. It was a portrait made by a girl who had never been allowed to speak loudly before. And now, her voice was framed on a wall. She came with her. "Mom," Alexandra whispered. They both cried. Keanu sat cross-legged near the window, slowly tying his boot. Double quotes. "Yeah," he said softly, "I saw." He looked at Alexandra, her hair tied up in a messy knot, her fingers stained with blue paint, her expression tired but peaceful. "You gave them something they'll never forget," he added. She turned around, leaning against the wall. "No," she said gently, "we did." Asterisk asterisk the days that followed were busy. The gallery became more than just a space, it became a story. People began coming by just to sit. Others brought their kids, their journals, their pain. Alexandra started offering something new. Silent mornings. A few hours every week where people could just sit in stillness with art. No phones, no talking, No judgment. And Keanu helped where he could. Not as the movie star, not as the headline, just as a man who knew how to listen. He helped clean brushes, made coffee for parents who stayed too long, repaired a cracked tile near the restroom. No one asked him to. He just did it. And the community noticed. A man who could have been anywhere chose to be there. Quietly, kindly. One afternoon, a woman named Stella came in. She was middle-aged, with silver hair and worn shoes. She walked through the gallery, slowly, her hand brushing the edges of the frames. She paused in front of a painting made by a boy named Liam, only 12, but full of fury and fire. Stella didn't say anything. But tears slid down her cheeks. Alexandra approached gently. "Are you okay?" she asked. Stella nodded. "That painting, it looks like the inside of my son's head. He passed last year. No one ever saw him like this." Alexandra sat beside her. "Someone does now." And in that moment, without plans or permission, Stella pulled out her wallet and handed Alexandra a folded letter. "It's a check," she said. "I don't have much, but this matters." Alexandra tried to refuse. Stella held her hand firm. "Don't rob me of the chance to be part of something good." Meanwhile, far across town, Andrew Ford sat in his empty office. His phone barely rang. Clients were distant. Listings were lost. He stared at the screen, where the gallery's social media page was growing. Hundreds of comments, reposts, local news coverage. He hated the way his chest tightened. He told himself it was jealousy, but really it was shame. He had judged Alexandra too quickly, too harshly. And now, her success was rising like light through stained glass. But part of him still didn't understand how it happened. How someone he had dismissed with a glance had become the center of something so powerful. He decided to visit again. Not during an event, not during press. Just quietly. He walked in and saw Alexandra arranging a new piece in the front corner. She wore jeans with holes and paint on her elbows. She looked up, surprised. "You again," she said softly. He nodded. Double quotes. "I didn't come to be seen," he said. "Just wanted to understand." She tilted her head. "What part are you trying to understand?" He looked around. "How you did it. How you made people care." She stepped closer. "I didn't make them care. I made space for them to show it." He let those words sit. Then he asked, "How do you forgive someone like me?" She smiled, sad, but kind. "Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means not carrying the weight of what you did." He lowered his eyes. "I'm sorry," he said. "Really?" She nodded. "Then we're okay." And just like that, he left. But just as things seemed to settle, something happened. One of the students, Liam, the 12-year-old with the fire in his art, stopped showing up. Days passed. Then a week. His mother came by, eyes red. "He's not okay," she said. "He's being bullied. They saw his painting online, called him names. He won't leave his room." Alexandra's heart ached. This wasn't just about colors anymore. This was about courage and what happens when it gets bruised. She picked up her phone. "Keanu," she said, "I need your help." He didn't ask questions. "I'll be there in 10. They drove to Liam's neighborhood. Small homes, broken fences, the kind of place where dreams are kept quiet. They knocked on the door. His mother let them in. Liam was curled up in bed, face turned to the wall. Keanu walked in slowly, sat on the edge of the bed. "Heard you're an artist," he said gently. "No reply. I once got called names too," Keanu added. "They laughed when I said I wanted to act, said I'd never make it." Liam turned his head slightly. "But here's the thing," Keanu said. "They didn't get to decide who I became." Liam blinked. His voice cracked. "They said my painting was weird." Keanu smiled. "The best ones always are." Then he pulled something from his pocket, a folded photo of one of Alexandra's first pieces. Rough, misunderstood, now worth thousands. "This used to sit in her garage," Keanu said. "Now it hangs in a museum." Liam's eyes widened. Keanu stood up. "Don't stop, not for them, not ever." 3 days later, Liam returned to the gallery. He brought a new painting. This one was brighter, but the fire was still there. Alexandra hung it proudly near the front. And beside it, A small card that read, "When you feel unseen, paint louder." That night, Alexandra and Keanu sat once again on the rooftop. The city below felt smaller now. Not because they had conquered it, but because they had connected with it. "Do you think this will last?" she asked. He looked at her. "I think. If we keep showing up, it will grow." She nodded. And then, quietly, Keanu pulled a small wooden plaque from a paper bag. He handed it to her. On it, carved in gentle letters, "Grant and Reeves Art House." Alexandra blinked back tears. "You're putting your name on it?" "No," he said softly. "Our name." But just when they thought the story had found peace, a call came in from the city office. Someone had filed a formal complaint. The building wasn't zoned for public events. They were given 30 days to shut it down. And this time, Keanu wasn't the only one being targeted. 30 days to disappear. There inside the loft felt heavier than usual. Not because of the weather, not because of the artwork, but because of the envelope Alexandra now held in her hands. The city seal on it was cold. The language inside was colder. Notice of non-compliance, unauthorized use of property for public events, violation of local zoning ordinance 12.430. They had 30 days. 30 days to stop the workshops, stop the gallery nights, stop the only place some people finally felt like they belonged. Alexandra read the letter 3 times before saying anything. Keanu stood quietly beside her, hands in his pockets. His eyes scanned the wall where Liam's new painting now hung. "They want us to close," she finally whispered. Keanu didn't move. "They want us to vanish," she said again, louder this time. He looked at her gently. "Then we don't." She stared at him. "They'll fine us." "Let them. They'll threaten legal action." He nodded. "We'll find a way." She walked across the room and sat down on the floor, hands in her hair. "I can't let them take this. Not after everything. Not after the kids." Keanu knelt beside her. "Then we fight. Respectfully. Wisely. But firmly." The first thing they did was call Maria, an old friend of Keanu's, and a lawyer who once helped him protect an orphanage project overseas. Maria was sharp, calm, and absolutely fearless. She came to the loft that night, walked through the space. Read the notice. Then looked up and said, "They're trying to scare you. It's political. Someone doesn't like what this place is becoming." "You mean someone important?" Alexandra asked. "No," Maria said. "Someone entitled." They dug deeper. And that's when they found it. The complaint had come from one single name. Arthur Wendell. A name Alexandra didn't recognize. But Keanu did. Arthur was a well-known developer. Rich, powerful, known for buying up quiet corners of the city and turning them into cold gray towers. He had been eyeing the block where the loft stood for years. He owned most of the buildings around it. Except this one. And now, Alexandra's art house, once ignored, had become a symbol of resistance. A space that made noise without shouting. And Arthur hated it. They could have moved the events. They could have shifted to private showings only. They could have made it quiet again. But Alexandra said no. "If we make ourselves smaller," she told Keanu, "then we teach everyone else to do the same." He nodded. "Then we make ourselves louder." The next day, they went public. A small press conference. Local reporters, students, parents, artists all gathered in front of the building. Alexandra stood behind a microphone. Her voice wasn't shaky. It was clear. "This place didn't start as a protest," she said. "It started as a painting, a sketch, a whisper. And it grew. Not because of fame, not because of money, but because of need." She looked at the crowd. "They want to shut us down. But you can't shut down a feeling. You can't erase the way this place makes people feel seen, safe, real." Keanu stood behind her, not speaking, just standing, tall, present. And when a reporter asked, "Mr. Reeves, is this a political move?" he finally answered, "No," he said. "This is a human one." The video spread fast. Within days, messages poured in. Artists from other cities, celebrities, everyday people, even a school principal from Ohio who asked, "How can we start something like this?" Arthur Wendell was furious. He filed another complaint. tried to fast-track the shutdown, but Maria was ready. She countered with documentation showing the building's original use had included community and cultural activities. She found a loophole in the zoning that proved Alexandra had every right to host events as long as safety protocols were followed. "We'll need permits, inspections, paperwork," Maria warned. "They'll try everything." Alexandra didn't flinch. "Then we give them everything," she said, "and we don't blink." The next few weeks were chaos. Fire inspectors. Permit reviewers. Endless forms. At one point, Alexandra spent 6 hours filling out emergency exit diagrams by hand. Keanu installed new smoke detectors himself. Maria negotiated late-night calls with city officials. But slowly, they met every demand. Every single one. And then came the day of the final inspection. Arthur himself showed up, dressed in a crisp suit, pretending to be concerned about neighborhood safety. He expected panic, disorder, maybe even shouting. What he found instead was peace. A clean, beautiful, organized gallery full of people working together. Students mopping the floor, volunteers setting up chairs, Liam carefully labeling emergency exits. Keanu met him at the door. Arthur forced a smile. "Quite the little operation you've got here." Keanu didn't smile back. "It's not little," he said. "It's just honest." Arthur raised an eyebrow. "We'll see how long it lasts." Keanu leaned in slightly, "Longer than you think." 2 days later, the decision came. The city approved their application. The art house was officially recognized as a community creative space. The shutdown notice was canceled. And Arthur, he filed one last complaint. And this time, the city ignored it. That evening, the loft was full of people again. Music, laughter, light. In the back corner, Alexandra stood quietly, holding a folded piece of paper. It was the original complaint. She placed it gently into the fireplace and watched it curl. Blacken, disappear. Keanu joined her. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. "They tried to erase us," she whispered, "but we painted over their silence." He smiled. "And now the walls speak louder than ever." She looked around the room. Liam was reading poetry in front of a small group. Lucy was helping a younger girl sketch her first tree. Students were smiling. The lights glowed soft. This was more than a building now. It was a message, and Alexandra had written it with her hands, her heart, and her whole soul. But just as she started to breathe again, someone stepped through the door. Not Arthur. Not a stranger, but someone from Alexandra's past. And what he said would open a chapter of her story. Even Keanu didn't know. The man who once walked away. The door creaked softly as it opened. The wind outside carried the faint sound of traffic and distant sirens, but inside the loft, everything stood still. The conversations paused. Even Liam, in the middle of his poem, lowered his book. Alexandra turned toward the entrance. The man who stepped inside wore an old leather jacket, dusty jeans, and a look that had seen too many years go by without the right words being spoken. It took Alexandra a moment to place him, but then, like a wave crashing back after pulling away, it hit her. His name was Elliot. Her father. The room blurred around her. The laughter faded. All she could hear was the quiet hum of memory. He looked older now. His beard gray, eyes tired, but they still had that same flicker, that same mix of apology and pride. He stepped forward slowly, head in his hands. "Hi, Ollie," he said. His voice was rough but gentle. "You've done something beautiful here." She didn't speak. "Not yet." Keanu noticed the change in her face from across the room. He walked toward her, staying close, but letting her decide how to move. Elliot continued, "I know I'm probably the last person you ever expected to see here. Maybe even the last person you want to see." Alexandra still hadn't said a word. But she didn't walk away. Elliot swallowed hard. "I left when I shouldn't have. And I blamed art for things it had nothing to do with. I blamed your paintings for taking your mother's time. I blamed your drawings for our silence. I thought, maybe if we stopped creating, we'd be okay." He looked around the room. "But now I see. Creation wasn't the problem. It was the only thing keeping us alive." Tears welled in Alexandra's eyes. For years, her father had refused to come to shows, refused to acknowledge her work. After her mother passed away, he drifted like a ghost, always near the edge of her life, but never stepping in. Until now. I saw your name in the paper, he said. I saw what you and that man did. How you stood up for this place, for those kids. He took a deep breath, and I thought maybe it's not too late to say I'm sorry. The words dropped into the room like stones in water, small but heavy. Alexandra looked at him. Truly looked. His shoulders weren't as wide as they used to be. His hands shook slightly. He wasn't the man who had slammed doors and shouted about wasted time. He was just human. And maybe a little broken. She finally spoke. You missed a lot. He nodded. I know. Mom needed you. His voice cracked. I know that too. And I needed you. He closed his eyes for a second. I know. I'm sorry. Keanu stayed silent. He didn't need to say anything. This was Alexandra's space to speak. She stepped forward and hugged her father. Not tightly, not forever. Just enough to say, I see you. He hugged her back. A little too long, a little too late. But it was a beginning. Later, they sat on the rooftop together. Alexandra, Keanu, and Elliot. The stars above them, the city blinking below. Elliot looked out across the skyline. I didn't know how to handle your fire, he said softly. Alexandra stared ahead. I didn't know how to keep going without your warmth. Keanu glanced. Between them, heart full but quiet. Elliot turned to him. Thank you for standing by her. Keanu replied simply. It was never a question. Over the next few weeks, something shifted. Elliot started helping around the art house. He wasn't an artist, but he was handy. He fixed broken light fixtures, helped repaint chipped walls, taught Liam how to hang heavy frames without splitting the wood. People didn't know who he was. They just saw a kind man who worked hard and asked for nothing. And Alexandra, she began a new piece, her largest ever, a mural across the back wall of the loft. It started as a sketch, then colors, then layers. It showed a girl standing at the edge of a cliff, paintbrush in hand, facing a rising sun. Behind her stood shadowy shapes, people who had walked away. But in the painting, they were reaching back toward her now, not to pull her down, but to help her fly. Keanu watched it grow every day. He saw how her eyes softened, how her shoulders eased. He saw healing in every stroke. But then, just days before the grand reopening of the newly certified Grant and Reeves art house, a strange message arrived. Not a letter, not an email. A box. Inside it, a torn piece of canvas. And a note. You may have won the city, but you haven't won the block. There was no name, no return address. Keanu narrowed his eyes. This wasn't Arthur, he said. He's not. This subtle. Alexandra looked at the canvas piece. It was hers, from a painting she had sold years ago. A private buyer. Someone had destroyed it and sent her a piece of it like a warning. Someone was watching. Someone wanted her to stop, and they were willing to go further this time. Keanu clenched his jaw. Then we find out who. Alexandra looked at him. But what if they try to break everything again? Keanu stepped closer. Then we build it stronger. But what they didn't know was that the person behind the warning wasn't just trying to scare Alexandra. They were trying to erase something far bigger. A part of Alexandra's past that she had buried. And soon, everything she had built would be tested. Her strength, her name, even her truth. Because the next secret to surface was hers. The secret beneath the brush. The next morning, Alexandra stood at the edge of the mural, brush in hand, but she couldn't paint. Her fingers trembled. On the table nearby lay the torn piece of canvas from the box. The edges were frayed, the brush strokes familiar. It had been one of her first gallery pieces. A quiet painting, a shadowed doorway with just a trace of light seeping through. She had sold it to a man named Victor Levin almost 12 years ago. He had been kind at first, supportive, said he believed in emerging female artists. He bought 3 of her pieces, but she hadn't heard from him since. Until now. Keanu stepped into the loft, carrying coffee. He paused when he saw her face. You didn't sleep. How could I? She whispered. He set the coffee down and sat beside her. She finally spoke the truth she'd been holding back. Victor, he wasn't just a collector. He was the first person to offer me a solo show. He promised everything: exposure, press, buyers, and for a while, it felt like he meant it. Keanu listened, silently, but then he tried to control my work. He said I was getting too political, told me to soften my voice, to paint quieter things, prettier things. I said no. She took a deep breath. He canceled the show, told people I was unstable, said I didn't take feedback. My name disappeared from lists, from invitations. I had to start over. Keanu's jaw tightened, but he didn't interrupt. I thought he was gone, but if he still has that painting, and he destroyed it, it means he's watching again, and he's angry I made it without him. Keanu leaned forward. Then let's show him you don't need his permission to shine. They contacted Maria again. Within a day, they confirmed Victor still owned a property nearby, an empty commercial building on the same block as the art house. He was trying to buy up the neighborhood, quietly. And he had connections. He hadn't just sent the canvas. He had filed another complaint, this time through someone else's name. He was trying to bury Alexandra's work all over again, just like before. But this time, he wasn't hiding his motives behind a smile. He was hiding them behind power. But Maria had a plan. He's coming after your voice, she told Alexandra, so use it louder. They filed a response, public, open, and they released Alexandra's full story in a short documentary, a piece Alexandra had once been too afraid to share. It was raw, honest, filled with old journals, sketches, and silent tears, but it was powerful, and when it went live, everything changed. People didn't just support Alexandra, they rallied around her. Other artists stepped forward with stories of similar betrayals. Students wrote letters. Activists began pushing for a new policy. The Artist Protection Act focused on shielding creators from financial manipulation and silence through threat. It wasn't just about art anymore. It was about dignity. One evening, Alexandra stood on stage inside the gallery for a panel talk. Her voice was steady, the crowd silent. I was told once that my work was too bold, that I should make things that comforted people. But I believe art doesn't always have to comfort. Sometimes it needs to confront. She looked across the room. I forgave a man once, and he used that silence as permission. Not again, not anymore. The crowd stood and clapped. And in the back corner, someone walked out quietly, head lowered. Victor Levin. He had come, maybe hoping to intimidate, maybe hoping to see weakness. But what he saw instead was a wall covered in power, in pain turned into beauty, and in a woman who no longer needed to shrink for anyone. He never came back. Weeks passed. The gallery continued to grow. Alexandra added a new section, stories behind the brush, a wall where artists could write their truths beside their paintings, even the hard ones, especially the hard ones. Keanu walked by the wall often, reading each card with quiet respect. One day, Alexandra asked him why he never wrote one of his own. He smiled. My story's already on every wall. Here, in the way you stood up, in the way they speak louder now. She reached for his hand. Then let's write the next part together. On the 1-year anniversary of the art house, they held an open night. People came from all over, not just to see art but to feel safe, to feel human. And at the end of the night, Alexandra stood on the rooftop again, holding a cup of warm tea. Keanu joined her. He handed her a small box. Inside was a key. Not to the gallery. But to the building next door. They offered it to me, he said. I bought it, but it's yours for the next dream. Alexandra stared at him. How do you always know what I need before I say it? He shrugged. Because you speak even when you're quiet. She smiled through tears. This isn't just a place anymore, she whispered. It's a movement. He nodded. And movements don't end. They ripple. Below them, the city glowed. And somewhere, miles away, another artist picked up a brush for the first time. Because Alexandra Grant told the truth. Because Keanu Reeves stood beside her. And because someone chose to build instead of break.